Hello, my name's Gareth Murphy and I'm here to review the film Dreamhouse, which was released in 2011. The film is directed by Jim Sheridan and stars Daniel Craig, Rachel Weisz and Naomi Watts. Okay, the first thing I want to say about Dreamhouse is to talk about the trailer, basically. Avoid the trailer if you want to see this film, because the trailer acts as sort of a summary of the events of the film, really. It is probably one of the worst trailers I've ever seen. Anybody that's familiar with sort of UK television, we've got a channel over here called ITV, and they have a lot of sort of reality programs on, documentaries, fly on the wall stuff, following people around. And very often before the adverts come on, the commercials, there'll be like a little moment where they'll say next on so and so, coming next after the adverts, and then they'll show you what happens. It's like the ultimate sort of dumbed down television, if you like, and the trailer for Dreamhouse acts in a very similar way. It's just a summary of the things that happen. So avoid that before you watch the film is what I would say. Okay, so the film starts, the very first thing that we see is Daniel Craig, our central character. He's got this sort of high-flying job in the city. And we join him on his last day of employment. He's literally walking out of the door. He's saying goodbye to his job because he's got this dream house and he's got this family at home. He's got these two little daughters and Rachel Weisz is his wife. And he wants to spend more time with them. He wants to get more quality family time in, so he's leaving this job behind. And what's interesting in the first scene is that there's not much emotion shared between Daniel Craig and his sort of co-workers as he's leaving. Everybody's just slightly standoffish, not quite so sort of sorry to see him go. And that has the, that gets the sort of cogs ticking in your brain as to what's happening with the film, which is an interesting opening. And so there they are, Daniel Craig and Rachel Weisz. They've got this dream home. And then about sort of 30 to 35 minutes into the film, there's this major plot twist that you would expect to come, sort of in the last reel of any sort of film usually. But they give us this quite early on. And I'm not going to spoil it for anybody that wants to sort of watch the film and enjoy it. I twigged it about 5 minutes before it happened. But again, don't watch the trailer, because if you watch the trailer, it will probably serve it up for you. But yeah, they give this sort of big twist quite early on. And I'm not going to go into too much more detail about the plot or the synopsis because of this plot twist. Basically, the film just carries on from there. And if I say anything more, I'm probably going to give too much away, so I'll leave it there. But ultimately, what is interesting about this film is the kicking it got from the critics, actually. It really did get a kicking around town from most of the sort of well-respected critics out there. 1-star reviews I read, which were a little bit harsh, but I think it's easy to understand why. Because when you look at the talent involved with this film, I mean, you've got Jim Sheridan in the director's chair. Jim Sheridan, who is, a great director. He's done a lot of landmark work, a lot of sort of important films, stuff like, My Left Foot and the Daniel Day-Lewis film In the Name of the Father. He is capable of sort of dropping his game a little bit. Anybody that saw the film Get Rich or Die Trying, the sort of life story of 50 Cent, will wish they hadn't. But then he's done sort of middling stuff like Brothers, which I quite enjoyed. But yeah, this film really did get a kicking, and I think it's probably because, it's got such a fantastic cast and a great director behind it. You would expect something a little bit more on a higher level. But what Dreamhouse is in the end is little more than a sort of episode of The Twilight Zone, really. And I think if you go into it with sort of lowered expectations, you'll probably have a better time, to be quite honest. But if you sort of, go into it blindly, sort of thinking, no, it's Daniel Craig, it's Naomi Watts, it's Rachel Weisz, Jim Sheridan in the director's chair, you'll be like, oh, this has got to be good. But yeah, it's a bit of a letdown on that level. I mean, to compound this film's misery, not only was the critical reception pretty bad, it didn't do too well at the box office either. It didn't play very well with audiences at all. I think the production budget was around about $50 million, and I think it came in at like sort of $38 or $40 million worldwide. So it did lose money on its sort of theatrical run. How it did on DVD and Blu-ray after that, I don't really know, but, it's not had a good time, basically. And it's true, it's not a film that leaves a lasting impression on you. I mean, if you're just wanting something to ease the evening away on a Friday night, or just something to pass a little bit of time on an afternoon, it might be okay. It's a very old-fashioned styled film. They've not gone for any sort of CG, sort of overly, heavily sort of produced computer graphics or anything like that, which, I commend them for that, because I think a lot of films do sort of just jump into that pool all too readily, whereas this film is, it is very much an old-fashioned film. If it was shot in black and white and sort of released in the 50s, it'd probably fit in just fine. In terms of frights and scares, there's nothing that really sort of registered with me and sort of left a lasting impression. There are a few sort of loud bumps and noises in the first sort of 20 or 30 minutes, which I don't know about anybody else, but I just find that really annoying when a film just goes out of its way to make me jump just for the sake of making me jump. I just think that's annoying. And it did that a few times actually at the start. So in summary, I would have to say that Jim Sheridan's Dreamhouse is something of a disappointment. And I say that with regret because I really wanted the film to be good. I'm a big fan of everybody involved. I love the actors. I enjoyed some of the director's previous work. And it is a disappointment. It's not quite as bad as all the critics would have you believe, but it's nothing that will leave a lasting impression on you. And it's just one of those films that you're kind of glad when it's over. For me, it's a 5 out of 10.